I'm curious, talk us through your backstory. How did you get started?
I would say entrepreneurial journey kind of launched when I read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek.
So how did you change the business model into?
I just decided to launch a podcast to tell those stories.
What gave you that itch to explore high performance?
That's my biggest fear too. And I didn't know it up to that point in my life.
Are you focused on longevity or muscle building?
For me, that's most important is longevity and agility.
Any biggest failures which you would like to share?
Always follow the money. The money never lies.
What inspires you, Chris?
Well, I love just supporting people in their business growth.
What's going on? What's going on, everybody who's actually listening to this podcast right now? First of all, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Nikhil Sai Show, which is hosted by me, the Nikhil Sai. And guess what's going on today? We're back with another amazing guest. The guest who we are actually jumping on is not just a normal business person like we typically talk about. This guy is an entrepreneur, a visionary who also running a podcast, and he has interviewed over 500 entrepreneurs on his show. I'm not just talking about normal guests. I'm talking about billion-dollar company founders. And this is going to be an exciting podcast, so make sure to tune in. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to build a high-performance routine and you want to get more clear on what you would like to achieve and get tactical advice with amazing stories, this is a podcast for you to definitely tune in. Now, we are talking to the creator of the Business Method podcast and the man behind M3 Founders Club. Let's not waste any time and actually let's welcome Chris Reynolds. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Nick, how's it going? I'm excited to be here and excited to make a great podcast with you.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. I mean, Chris, what have you not done? I mean, you've been featured in, Inc. and you've been featured in Tropical MBA podcast, DNX podcast, Authority Factor, Wellpreneur. I mean, you've been everywhere, brother, and you've been interviewing all these amazing entrepreneurs. We are stoked to get into the learnings. Because I personally feel connected because I run a podcast and I built $1 million marketing agency by doing it, by learning from other people. And I believe this is one of the best ways to equip knowledge and also share knowledge as well. Before we get into the podcast realm and, high performance stuff and all the tactical stories we could get into, I'm curious, talk us through your backstory. How did you get started? What actually made you to come into the podcasting? What actually made you to build the M3 club overall? I'm stoked. So walk us through your backstory from the beginning to what's going on.
Yeah, I would say entrepreneurial journey kind of launched when I read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of entrepreneurs have changed their lives because of that book. And so when I read it, it opened my eyes to the ability. You said you're living in Dubai now. I actually, after I read that book, I started an online business and I became a digital nomad for about 10 years and lived all over the world, had an amazing time, knocked off so many bucket list dreams. But while doing it, I realized, and this is, I started traveling in 2011. So this is 13 years ago now. While doing it, there wasn't a lot of people that were building communities for digital nomads back then. And I saw all these amazing people as I was traveling, build businesses online, but they had no place to go and be together as like a community. So I started I started a business, and this is back in 2014, so 10 years ago. I started a business called the Entrepreneur House, and we would go and we'd live in different cities around the world for 1 month at a time. As entrepreneurs, we'd set goals together. We'd enjoy the cities. We'd, go to Barcelona, Thailand, Rio de Janeiro, all these fun places. And it was fun. It was a really fun business. However, to scale that business, to make it a really scalable business, it needed a lot of different tweaks and a lot of things that I didn't want to do to scale it into, a very, very successful company. So I decided so I ran that for a few years. But during that time, we were getting so many great success stories from the people coming and staying in the Entrepreneur House that I just decided to launch a podcast to tell those stories and to share his testimonials. And then I turned it into what is now the Business Method, because I just enjoyed, like yourself, Nick, I just enjoyed interviewing entrepreneurs. The thing that I wanted to do a bit differently, because I wanted to keep seasons in my my strategy for growing the podcast. So my very first season that I had, this was after about 50 shows or so. My first season was 100 interviews with 100 people that have built $100,000 businesses online and higher. And so I did those 100 episodes, and then I was like, this is fun. Let's see if we can go, the next step up. So then I did 100 episodes with 100 people that have built $1 million businesses online. And
Mm-hmm.
then after we finished that season, then I was like, well, let's do 8 and 9 figures. This sounds fun. So then I started to do, so I did 100 episodes with 100 people that have built 8 and 9 figure companies. And then I was like, well, what's the next step? $1 billion companies. Let's do that. So I started that, and now we're in the process of that series of $100 billion founders. And this one has been, although I've enjoyed all the other cities, the series we've done, this one has been the most fun. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, we could learn the most from billionaires. They should have gone through so much more. I mean, the magnitude of the knowledge and wealth and wisdom they might have is comparatively more than typical entrepreneur, and that's why they're successful. And I'm glad that you are actually leveling up and like increasing the bar per entry. That just inspired me to do better with my podcasting overall. So I'm stoked. That's so very interesting overall. So you were interviewing these people, and so so how did you change the business model into, so like all of the community is just tuning to the podcast right now? Is that like the main way, or do you have any way to actually monetize this audience, or is there any community which is going on along with the podcast? I'm curious on the business aspect of this.
Yeah, what I originally did when I didn't want to do the Entrepreneur House anymore is I took all the goal setting and performance and productivity content that we were sharing in the Entrepreneur House, and I put it online. And I launched a bunch of
Mm,
courses. I did some consulting on my own, and I grew it that way. And we did it online for a few years. And then when COVID happened, I had a big network, and we have sponsors on the podcast, but I stopped taking sponsorships because I use it just for in-house sponsoring or marketing for our own business.
mm.
And so when COVID happened, I launched masterminds for people that were in crisis mode during COVID. And that actually turned into the community that we have now, M3 Founders Club. And so after those masterminds were going along, people in the group, they said, hey, we'd like to do some live events. So then we started doing a couple, 2 to 3 live events per year. And then we made it a full paid on community. We kept our events going. And so that's what we're up to now.
I love that. That's so cool. So that's a very interesting way to turn around the entire business upside down and still keep the vibe of the community and keep the spirit alive. That's so refreshing to actually hear. Chris, I'm curious. You're very focused, or I would say you're particular on understanding like the high performance overall and getting the best out of individuals. And I could relate to that message because I always like to push my ability overall. And I just like, if I have the fullest potential, in this body, why not just fully get it out? Why not just convert it into an output instead of just sitting in the couch and watching Netflix? So I'm curious. Uh, what gave you that itch to explore high performance in the first place, and what, I would say, belief systems you have around entrepreneur performance in general?
Yeah. So I one of the guys I interviewed a while back is Laird Hamilton, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's like the Michael Jordan of big wave surfing. He's one of the top big wave surfers, one of the first guys to ever surf the big waves, and he's been a hero of mine. So when I got to interview him, it was quite fun, but also like a pinnacle in my life. But anyway, way back in the day, like, say this is 2007, I saw him on an interview, and they asked him, well, aren't you scared of these big waves that you're surfing? These are like 60-foot waves, 70-foot waves, 100-foot waves. And he goes, no, I'm not really. Like, there's fear there, but it's not my biggest fear. And they asked Laird, what's your biggest fear? And he said, my biggest fear is a half-lived life. And that like hit me, like it hit me right in my soul. And I was like, that's my biggest fear too. And I didn't know it up to that point in my life. So high performance comes around because of that fear of living a half-lived life. And just Laird said this actually on the podcast when I asked him about it. I said, like, what does that mean to you, living a half-lived life? And he goes, well, just generally having the awareness. Like, I set goals to go out and surf big waves, to launch a business, to do all these cool things to help people. But having the awareness that you don't want to live a half-lived life really kind of makes you more in tune to living a full life. And I go, that makes sense. And so I particularly, like, I have a goal setting method that I use every quarter. And I always set a mental goal, emotional goal, a spiritual goal, and a physical goal. And that keeps me balanced. It keeps me focused on relationships. It keeps me focused on my fitness, keeps me focused on my spiritual life and also my business life too. Right. And setting those goals really kind of just when you have goals like that and you commit to them and you're focused on them, you tune into high performance it's as a natural thing because those are important for you. And those goals, those 4 goals are like wheels on a car. If one goal, if you don't have a great physical life or you're not healthy, you may have all the money in the world and you may have, great relationships, but if you're not healthy, it won't last that long, and you're not going to enjoy it as much as you can if you were healthy, right? And vice versa. If like your mental goal or your business goals suck, like you have no money, but you have great health. Like we all know people that go to the gym all the time that have no money. Great people, but also they're limited in what they can do with their life. So you need to have fulfillment in all 4 of those areas to really have a fulfilled life, right? And I'll tell you a story. Like I'll circle back. One of the billionaires that we interviewed is a guy named Drayton McLean. He built a wholesale grocery business to $19 billion, and he owned the Houston Astros baseball club. And he was good friends with Sam Walton. His company actually provides all the groceries for Walmart around the world. And so they were good friends for a long time. And we went to visit Drayton. He told us this story. He said, Sam was in his 70s. We knew he had cancer, but he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, Drayton, I'd like to go on one more bird hunt." They're from Texas, right? Well, Sam's Arkansas, Drayton's from Texas, so they like to go hunting. So he said, "I'd like to go on one more bird hunt with you, before it's all over." And he said, "I think I got one more in me." So he flew down to Texas. Him and Drayton went out and they went to the field. They were in their pickup truck. They got their guns out and they walk out about 100 meters or so. And Sam sits down and he starts crying. At this point, this is in the 90s, I believe. Sam was the richest man in the world, could do anything that he wanted, left billions to his children and his family, did a lot of greatness in the world. And he's in his 70s with cancer and he starts crying and he's out of breath. And Drayton goes, "What's wrong, Sam?" And Sam goes, "Man, I would give all my money back to have my health at this point in my life." The richest man in the world saying that. And when Drayton told us this story, we all got goosebumps. It was like,
Yeah.
while the money is amazing and important, and the other billionaires that I've interviewed say the same thing, billionaires and billion-dollar founders, while it's important and it's fun, to go out and make a lot of money and to have this drive and this ambition. At the end of the day, if you don't have your health, if you don't have your relationships, if you don't have if you can't lay your head down at night and be comfortable with the life that you're living, like none of it's worth it. Right. And Sam Walton is a perfect testament to that.
Wow, that's a beautiful story, Chris. I mean, it just makes a clear point. I mean, at what cost you're willing to win, but is it worth paying the price of your health in the first place to get the wealth which you don't need, which you obviously want to trade back for your health? So, wow, that's really an ultimate thing. Yeah, I have like my Whoop and my Apple Watch both at the same time for a reason.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting more nerdy, right? Like from the situations where I am coming from, I come from nothing. We were raised as a family of 4, including my parents, in one room overall. It's a very small house, in tier 3 city, tier 3 country in India, like middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Coming from that scarcity, I remember myself hustling 18-hour days, like, on laptops and like everything, to get. But yeah, once you get a comfortable life and you have your basic necessities covered, you don't need to like hustle through and just bustle up yourself. I was focused more obviously on the longevity stuff, on interesting topics of the power loss, of sleeping well, eating well. I don't drink anything other than water right now. It just changed my life. I think more clearly than ever before. I'm just more conscious and I only eat clean food. It's just transformation. So we'll definitely dive into some exciting stuff. But that's very interesting. So Chris, walk us through what are you working on overall? Like we'll talk about the goal setting method, obviously, which is very interesting. But before that, I'm curious, when you're looking at your own personality, like we always want to trade. I would trade every dollar I ever have in my life or made. I'm going to make as well if somebody comes and guarantees me that I'm going to live until 120. right? Like
Yeah.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, I just know I could make a better world overall, and that's all matters. Money doesn't matter. I'm curious, what are the things you are practicing actively to keep your health active, to make you in the best shape or best life possible? And are you focused on longevity or muscle building? What's like the key for you overall? How do you measure yourself?
For me, that's most important is longevity and agility. I don't care
Mm,
that much about strength. I'm actually naturally a stocky guy, so strength was never an issue for me. I know some people it is. But I don't worry too much about strength. I like being agile. I like to have movement. I like to be able to move however I want when I want. And so the main thing for me, really, the past 6 or 7 years is jujitsu. And I've been a
mm,
practitioner of jujitsu, and I train regularly. I have a competition coming up in a couple weeks, so I'm cutting weight. I'm doing keto diet. I kind of feel like
wow.
yeah, like a UFC fighter or something, trying to cut weight to make these fights, right? And I'm over 40 as well. And for
Mm,
me, as long as I have my agility, flexibility, and to feel youthful, all
mm,
this is important, but also I want to be able to do jujitsu until my 50s and 60s, right? So you have to maintain all of that. For me, for me, it's been the absolute best exercise that I have ever found. And I'll tell you why. I used to be a runner. I did a lot of running, a lot of push-ups, a lot of, squats, a lot of like, I was never a gym guy. I never liked weights, but I did like going out and running up or down a mountain and mountain biking up and down a mountain.
mm.
But the thing is, what you get with jujitsu, have you ever practiced jujitsu before, Nick?
No, I'm definitely considering as I'm listening. I'm like, oh, maybe I should try.
There's a reason there's such a popularity. There's a popularity around jujitsu now,
Mm,
especially for guys. Well, when you practice jujitsu, not only do you practice strength training because you're fighting somebody, but you're practicing thinning muscles you had no idea that you needed to strengthen, right? You're also practicing cardio because you're rolling and you're fighting somebody. So it's almost a forced cardio and a forced strength training. I work harder in a jujitsu gym than I ever would in a regular gym or going on a run because I
interesting.
have somebody on top of me that I want to, beat, and I want to get this person off of me. And so I don't think about my cardio. I don't think about my strengths or weaknesses. It's just like adrenaline, right? And it takes you to another level. The next thing, to do jujitsu is you have to be flexible, right? You can't
Mm,
be a stiff, non-flexible person and do jujitsu
you
and
would
roll
break
around on those
yourself.
mats and get in those
Yeah.
positions like you'd pull body parts all the time. The other thing
Mm,
is mental conditioning. So there's a strategy in jujitsu that's similar to chess. And chess is a very healthy sport. But on top of that, and neuroscientists say that, is that the people that generally live the longest are people that play racket sports. So like tennis, ping pong, racquetball, these types of sports. Now, jujitsu
interesting.
has that as well because what it's doing when you play racket sports, it's firing different areas of the brain that are instinctual. And but also at the same time you have to act in a very rapid way, so you have to think fast, but you have to
Mm,
use your instincts as well. The same thing happens in jiu-jitsu. When you're doing a roll or you're fighting somebody, you have to think very fast and you have to be very instinctual. And then the next thing is emotional control. Like you have to be able to control your emotions. If not, you'll get upset because you lost and you'll throw a little fit, and nobody likes that guy in a gym, nobody respects that person, and then they'll just get smashed again and somebody else will beat them up again, and so on and so forth. So when you practice jujitsu, you're literally getting like a stack of 6 or 7 skills at once. And that's why I really
mm,
think it's gained a ton of, well, on top of that is confidence. Because if you physically know you can protect your family or your girlfriend or your wife, or you can take out somebody that's being aggressive, 3 months in jujitsu, and you could probably control and submit probably 80% of the people in the world. And so that, like,
whoa.
if you just give yourself, yeah, 3 months of hard training in jujitsu, good training, it's amazing, how much you learn to control another human. And so you get all of those on top of that. Plus, like, if I ever have a bad day or I'm depressed or, business is crap that day or whatever, I go to jujitsu and there's never a bad day because you just feel so dang good afterwards. You get all these endorphins. Here's another thing, and this is not in India so much as North America, but people in North America, the average person in the United States touches another human being 6 times a day. And can you guess what the average person in the world, how many times they touch another human? You're from India, so you should know. It's definitely more than 6, but what are your thoughts?
And maybe like 15. I don't
No,
know.
no, no. The average human touches another human over 106 times a day, right? So you think about a mother and her baby or a family with kids, they're always touching. They're
Hmm.
playing, they're wrestling, they're making food, they're giving hugs, they're doing all this thing. This is what most people live like, right? You can imagine the people
Hmm.
in India, hugging, people in
They're
Italy are
definitely
kissing
connected.
each other and all the time, right? And so in the United States and a lot of North America, a lot of the Western world, there's a significant lack of touch, and especially because we're
That
all
sounds
online,
terrible.
it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely horrible for our emotions, for our neurochemicals, for all the things. And so when you go to jujitsu, you get to touch humans. Now they're sweaty dudes usually, but at the same time, there's which isn't what everybody wants to do, but at the same time there's something, like you think about kids or small animals, they just wrestle. It's natural for them to wrestle and play around and roll around on the floor and try to tackle each other,
Hmm.
right? Animals do this, humans do this, and there's a natural part of jujitsu that fulfills a need in our technological world that we don't have. So
Interesting.
that's where I go for health.
I love that. I love that. That's pretty interesting. I mean, I will take this up as a challenge. I've been considering something like, MMA or kickboxing or jiu-jitsu, something specific as a life skill. And I moved to Dubai for a reason. So there's zero crime here, actually. Like I've never seen somebody
Mm.
shouting at somebody here. So which is a good thing. But I believe it's a good skill. I challenge myself to definitely explore this and I'll keep you posted on my progress. Other
Yes,
than
please do.
jiu-jitsu, what are the things you are into? Like, do you have any power laws which you personally follow, like cold plunge or any nitty-gritty stuff you are into a little bit, like sauna or sleeping or any particular supplements which are kind of helping you with your biomarkers, or are you like only just like jiu-jitsu and like that's like 80% of the game? How does that look like?
Well, I actually take a spa after every time I do jujitsu. So 2 to 3 times a week, and
Hmm.
actually more like 3 times a week, because my co-working has a spa and a cold plunge and a sauna in it. And so it's great. I go to the jujitsu gym right after I go to the spa, take cold plunges, take saunas. These are very important in my life for recovery as well. And then I just like
Hmm.
take a shower and I go up to the co-working and work the rest of the day. Yeah, like I love biohacking. I've done tons of brain scans, neurofeedback. I've been cold plunging since 2018. I do 5 or 6 a week cold plunges,
Before it's cool.
saunas. Yeah, actually, yeah, deep breathing, all this stuff. But it's all really about emotional management and getting being in
Hmm.
the right state so you can produce and do the things you
Hmm.
want to enjoy life, right?
Sure.
And yeah, and I'm also like when I dove deeply into neuroscience, you start to really understand the brain waves and where your brain is
Hmm.
when it's stressed and feeling anxiety and fear versus where your brain waves are when you're in a flow state versus where your brain waves are when you're meditating. Right. And
Hmm.
that really helped me to visualize how to go from anxious state, fear state, actionary state to a more flow state. And you do that through, I do that personally through taking little breaks. I do that through regular cold plunges, cold showers. I do that through meditating, or if I have a little bit of time, just taking some deep breaths for a few minutes and stepping away from the computer before I come back to work.
Yeah, I love that, Chris. I mean, you talked about few important factors here. It's like, for I believe 1 hour of focus work is more important than entire week of just bustling. That's just my
Yeah.
personal view because I have seen like, okay, like if you're just like zoned in for 1 hour, you could just get more stuff done. You could generate more revenue, more leads, more client success, more business, and build a better strategy for your business than you doing just your day-to-day operations and firefighting for the entire week and nothing would actually happen. So I'm curious, do you have, or because you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and you've been running your own business for decades now, I'm curious, what has been like your playbook to get into the focus mode, the zoned mode where you're actually getting stuff done? How would that look like overall?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things that I've done over the years, but nowadays what it looks like the first thing I do when I wake up is I go up to our roof and get some sunshine and do a little meditation. So that helps
Mm,
drop me in a state. But the most important thing to get into the focus state for me nowadays, at least, is just to really have a goal that I'm ambitious about, that I'm hungry for, that I
mm,
really want to do. Of course, I do the music. Like I use Brain FM to have the flow state music. I make sure like my phone is nowhere near me. Our brains are really our brain thinks about checking our phone on average about 6 times per 10 minutes, right? And so you're thinking in an hour. Yeah, it's
What?
huge. Yeah. And so you're thinking if you're not in a flow state on a regular
Hmm.
timing, right? So if you're thinking in if you're not in flow state, then or if that phone's around you, then you're thinking about it so much more. Now, what happens is when your phone is either off or it's at least 6 feet, 2 meters away from you, then your brain actually reduces massively the amount of time that it thinks about that phone. So I turn my phone off. I usually keep my apps off until noon every day. I usually keep it on airplane mode until about noon every day. And that helps me start
Hmm.
the day off right. Like I can have a good focus like that, knock some things off in the morning. And then I do
Hmm.
and working, those are the bigger goals that I work on in the morning in the business or on the business. And then in the afternoon, I work in the business. I focus on emails, catching up with messages, little annoying things that we have to do in our business that none of us want to do, but it's just part of having a business. So that really kind of keeps me in the flow state.
Makes sense. Wow, that sounds interesting. Chris, like I believe one of the biggest success, like the most successful traits I have seen in entrepreneurs from the ones I've interviewed and from the ones I'm learning from is they have high self-discipline. And you sound like somebody who has, I would say, a controlled life, meaning you're very conscious about what you're getting yourself into. And you're not that guy who says, "Oh, you only live once. Let's just run through life the way we want." Like you're more
Yeah.
conscious. And I believe having that self-discipline is a key factor for successful people because like they control the destiny, they control the process, and they have a method to the madness. So I'm curious, in the business you are in, there is so many shiny objects. You could constantly launch new offers, new things, new partnerships, new XYZ things. How do you keep yourself out of that and just stay disciplined? What tips and tricks you actually have for the entrepreneurs who are listening in? Because this is probably the biggest problem. Most people who are stuck, they're always coming back with new idea every week and trying to work on it, but they don't have one single idea which is constantly working in the first place.
Exactly. I'll tell you, I've had to learn this the painful way, because I chased too
You
many
bet.
shiny objects. Yeah. And chasing too many shiny objects, like it just didn't give me the success that I wanted. And then
Mm,
I'd get an, us visionary entrepreneurs, we have a great idea every 2 days. And a lot of times we get
I
excited
agree.
about it and we're like, oh, this thing, this thing, this thing. This has been a big help. One, the painful lesson of not having the success that I wanted has really given me the discipline to focus on less.
Mm,
And sometimes you just have to learn that lesson the hard way. The other thing is, while interviewing these billion-dollar founders, the commonality amongst all of them is all of them are really focused on one thing. They're focused on one thing until that one thing is so damn successful, and then they can move on to the other and they can throw some investments into other stuff or they exit that company, right? I
mm,
interviewed Jeff Hoffman, who's the founder, or he's one of the founding partners that created Priceline, and he also invented the airport kiosks. So he's the guy that can check in, because we can check in on the airport kiosk and don't have to wait in those stupid lines is because of
mm,
Jeff. But he also built a jazz, award-winning jazz album, and then he produced a movie called Cabin Fever. And then he became a producer of concerts for Elton John, Britney Spears, Pitbull, and Justin Timberlake. But he
yeah.
did all this. He didn't do all this all at the same timeline. Jeff's in his 70s. He first focused on
Mm,
Priceline. Priceline made him a billionaire, and then he started to do the other things because he had the money and the time and ambition, right? And
mm,
so all of these billion-dollar founders are focused on one thing. None of them have side hustles. None of them are like, "Yeah, I'm into crypto." None of them are like, "Oh, I've got this new NFT project." None of them are AI, jumping on the AI bandwagon, right? All of them are like, we have one thing. We're focused on our one thing. And we know that this one thing is giving a lot of value to the world. And so we're just going to focus on that for at least like 10 years, right? And they give it a decade. And I promise you, like any entrepreneur out there that gives one business 10 years, your life is going to change massively. I said earlier, I learned this the hard way. I'll tell you how I learned it the hard way. I was selling on Amazon in 2009. And I did this for
Mm.
6 months or so, 6, 7 months. And I was like, this crap doesn't work. You could imagine if I stuck with Amazon from 2009 to 2019, right? Like
My God,
I'd be
it
retired,
would be a
right?
different story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
somebody would be interviewing me for my $1 billion or whatever. Right? And then I also had, like I told you, I was a digital nomad in 2011. I had a mentor at that time tell me, Chris,
Mm.
you should start a YouTube channel, and then video all your travels, make a YouTube channel out of this, collect the AdSense. And I was like, no, I'm working on this niche website thing. You imagine if the 10 years I was started a digital nomad, 2011 to 2021, if I would have stuck with a YouTube channel, I could have
My
been a
God.
very, very successful YouTuber. So that was the painful lessons that I had to learn. And what I tell
Mm.
anybody that really wants success, I don't care if you're 21, you're 31, you're 41, you're 51, like pick something you really like and you enjoy, and give it 10 years.
Mm.
Now the business is going to morph and change a little bit over that 10 years. That's okay. Like it has to, but just pick something you're really interested in and give it a decade. Your YouTube channel has a great start, Nick. Like give that sucker 10 years and you are going to be like, rubbing shoulders and hanging out with Mr. Beast here pretty soon. And,
That means a lot.
right?
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's the thing. You just got to stick to it, and you can really build anything. You can, if you do anything long enough and loud enough, like you can build your mountain however you want to,
Yeah.
but you got to stick to it.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, yeah, you gave a beautiful example. Appreciate your kind words here. I think Mr. Beast is a great example. Like that dude was consistently making videos for 13 years,
Yeah.
and never gave up. And his
Yeah.
videos for the first 7 years, sucked so bad. They get
So
less
bad.
views than any of my podcasts. So it's so but he was on the trial. But I really enjoyed it. One thing you really mentioned here, which I really kind of match with overall, because when I meet an entrepreneur, in Dubai or somewhere online, I try to pay attention to how they're describing their plans. So many people are usually found on these gigs. Like, hey, I'm doing this thing for this 1 week. I make an extra $1,000. I'm like, great, but how consistent is that? Like, how reliable that is? How much more can you do that? Like, all these ideas and gigs, great, but that's not an actual business. So I like to listen to entrepreneurs who have what you said, like decade plan. Like, hey, I'm trying to build this in the next 10 years. And I know that guy will make it because he's long term focused and nothing can change in a day. And I agree, you could change working towards the goal, but the goalpost is further, to actually build something meaningful, it takes time. I had to actually have a very bad lesson. I lost $500,000 of my own cash
And
while running while running my media agency. I was building a software company because I got a little excited. I was like, oh, I'm making all this money. What should I do now? I should start a software company. You know what?
yeah,
And I did it. So it's just funny to even think about that, but great lesson overall. So yeah, Chris, that was beautiful. Talk us through, you have interviewed some amazing, amazing guests. If you could drill down and give away the top things you actually believe have added the most value to your listeners and yourself, what would that learning lessons be from the guests you have actually been interviewing in the past few years?
one of them was what we just spoke about is you focus on one thing and give it a decade, and that sounds like a lot of time for a lot of people, especially if you're younger, if you're in your 20s, say you're 23, 33 sounds so old, but when you're 43, 33 is like a kid, and when you're 53, 33 is like a teenager, right? And the thing is like anybody that I know that started a business when they were young and they're 15. I have friends that started businesses 15, 16, 17. They, by the time they were in their late 20s, early 30s, they had a lot of money. They were traveling the
Mm.
world. They could do whatever they wanted to do. They could buy homes. They could buy crypto. They could buy whatever they decided to buy. And they had a really enjoyable life. So, you think about the previous 10 years of your life. It's really not that long ago. I mean, how old are you, Nick?
I,
You're
I, I turned 23.
okay. You're 23. So for you, 10 years ago was half your life ago, nearly. So that was a long
Yeah.
time, right? But once you start to get a bit older, you realize 10 years, like it wasn't that long ago. Like, and you can change a lot and you can do a lot in 10 years. And if you focus on a job for 10 years, you're probably not going to be able to create the type of success that you can. Whereas if you're focusing on a business for 10 years. So that's the biggest thing. They have $1 billion founders have blinders on. They don't care about shiny objects. They're just really focused in on their one thing, and they really believe that their one thing is adding a significant amount of value to the world. So
Hmm.
it kind of fulfills them.
Hmm.
Some other things too is like, like I ask the founders when they come on the podcast to break their career up into chapters and to name those chapters. And a lot of people say the first 5 years of their business. One guy came on the show, Spencer Jan. He was like, my first 5 years were like duct tape and dreams. He goes, we were just like any other entrepreneurial venture, and we were just strapping things together with duct tape, and we just had big dreams, and we just kept going and going and going, right? And that was the first 5 years of their business. They ended up
Hmm.
going public with their company, creating a camping brand, and it became a $2 billion company. So the first few years for any business, and you know this, Nick, I'm sure you do, are rough. Like you're gonna go through your trials. You're gonna lose $500,000 and be like, "What the hell did I just do?" Like you're gonna think about stuff like that. You're gonna make mistakes, but you just got to keep at it. Some
Hmm.
other commonalities is, billion-dollar founders, they just do not have, most of them do not have limiting beliefs. So if they're like, oh, we have to raise 100 million, let's figure out how to raise 100 million. And they just think
Yeah.
about it just as much as you would raise $1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000, right? And really the amount of energy that it takes people to raise 100 million or 500 million or whatever is exactly the same as the amount of energy it takes to raise $100,000. You just
Yeah.
have to find the
You just
right
talk to
people.
different people. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. That's it. And you create an amazing business plan. You talk to the right people, and boom, like it changes. So they don't have
Hmm.
limiting beliefs around that. And then also, to sum it up, is like every billionaire or billion-dollar founder that I've interviewed are people that have built a company pretty much from zero to what it is today. They're
Hmm.
not the flashy billionaires that are, having a mega Instagram following and trying to show off their jets and all these things. They're humble people. Like Drayton McLean built a $19 billion company, sold it to Walmart, drives a car that's 12 years old, still to this day. I mean, he owned a baseball team. He doesn't have to. He's just a humble guy. Janice Bryan Howroyd, she is the first Black woman to build $1 billion company. Same thing. She's very humble. She's very down to earth. Jeff Hoffman, same thing. Built Priceline. I think he owns the Miami football team now.
Oh my
Anyway,
God.
yeah,
The magnitude we are talking is insane.
yeah. He literally he grew up in Arizona, rural Arizona, with a single mom, and he got accepted to Yale, and he had to pay his own way, so he started a business. And when he showed up as a freshman at Yale campus, a software business to pay for his tuition, and he was forced to because he was like, my tuition's 100,000 a year, so I need to make at least $100,000 this year in my business to pay for the tuition, right? And so billion-dollar founders they're humble. Of
Hmm.
course, a lot of them fly private. Some of them have their own jets. They can buy anything they want to in the world, but they don't, because they know the process of what it takes to build a billion-dollar company. They have the responsibility of thousands of jobs on their back. Whatever decision
Yeah.
they make affects so many people's lives, their customers and their employees, right?
Hmm.
And that's a lot of burden to carry, and it keeps them
Hmm.
grounded in many ways. Where in Dubai, I'm sure you see a lot of wealth flashing
Oh
around
yeah.
there.
A lot of
And
flashiness.
yeah, and it's okay. Like if you like, I love watches. I love great watches. I love a great suit. I love a great car. But at the same time, like it circles back in these billion-dollar founders to asking themselves, like, what am I spending my money doing? How much value is it really adding to the world and to my life? Who's it
Yeah.
helping? Who's it hurting? And they live in around those principles. They have strong values, strong principles around wealth generation, how they spend their wealth, how they make sure their wealth is affecting other people. So that was a really cool commonality that I saw and I continue to see amongst these founders,
Wow. I
on
love
a
that.
regular basis. Yeah.
That's really insightful, Chris. And I really like the fact that these billionaires, who actually have those character traits and financial discipline actually get to $1 billion because they have that. I would say the playbook already built on how they spend their money, how they view their money overall. But the problem I have is, maybe you would agree with me on this or not. Uh, Most entrepreneurs who are just making it are kind of getting into the mode of trying to impress other person, especially in Dubai. When I go to networking events or meet somebody, all they're trying to do
Yeah.
is like flash their stuff, which I'm completely okay with. Like, great, your watch looks amazing, but guess what? Like, it's 50% undervalued from what you bought, and you don't even have enough money to pay your rent, and you're just trying to impress other people and show up at expensive places to look good. Like you're just chasing the next new better,
Yeah.
to just build what exactly? So I'm kind of, definitely, I'm not really into that stuff, at least. Like, I receive a lot of text from people saying, hey, you're in Dubai, why don't you shoot some lifestyle content? I'm like, I'm not here for lifestyle, dude. I'm here for network and tax purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Clear disclaimer, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's stay to the point. So I believe financial literacy is probably one of the key things. People don't know maths. It just bothers me so much. Like, you make $10,000 this month, not to spend $10,000 next month. Like, no, that's not really like a sustainable thing. So I'm curious, what kind of like education you would like to share to the entrepreneurs who are listening about financial independence? Where was your aha moment to financial independence or financial literacy? Because I read the Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was living in the one room we were living overall. Whoa, like, once I
Yeah.
read it, I was like, I was in a lie. Like, I was boxed into this stuff with a lot of limiting beliefs. We never talked about money. I didn't know tax, business, profit, this is even an option. I only thought getting a government job or working for $200. My average friend is probably unemployed or making $200 somewhere. That was like my life, like, pathway. But like, discovering this entrepreneurship was like, oh my God. And I had to break so many limiting beliefs. And just when a million people are standing against me, I had to push through it and be like, no, like, I could make this work. Closing a client for $20,000 with a thick Indian skin, no college background, like, at 19 years from my mom's basement, was like it was like a different thing.
Life
But I had the
changing for
financial
you.
literacy. Yeah,
Yeah.
financial literacy and the right mentors around me who built the belief system. All thanks to them and my action taking abilities, I'm here. So I'm curious, what was your moment like, when you're getting into financial literacy, and how do you want to advise other people who are making money but it's not fu money yet, and they believe they made it and they just start spending it to go back to their mom's
Yeah.
basement in 3 5 years? That sucks. I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who make it then go back because they're
Yeah.
not good with their money.
Yeah. It's a really good question. Same as you, Nick. Like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It was one of the first books that I
Okay.
read on financial literacy. That was a life changer for me. There was another book I read not too long after Rich Dad Poor Dad called Millionaire Mindset by T. Harv Eker. And that
I did.
provide did you read that? You read that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I have that
Yeah.
hard copy. Pretty cool book.
That provides such a great structure on how to manage your money personally, and then how you can manage it in your business once you managed it personally. But what it is, and but for the listeners, say you get, let's just say for easy numbers, $5,000 a month, 5,000 euros in a month. So you take 10% of that and you divide it up in 5 different buckets or accounts, right? You've got a giving account, you've got a long-term savings for spending account, you've got a education account, you've got a spend account, or an account you have to blow every month, and then there's one I'm missing. Nick, do you remember the fifth one? I think that's a savings account, official investing account. That's the investing account.
Investing account. Yep. There
Yep,
was like
that's it.
5 buckets.
Yep. And you put 10% of your income in each one of those, and you live off 50%, right? And your rent has to fit in that, your food, yada, 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 your gym membership,
Necessities. Yeah.
car payment has to fit, is the rest. That was a game changer for me. I actually, did this back in the day. I actually had jars that I would put the money in back when we were dealing more with cash, right? And nowadays I have accounts, in my bank account where I
Multiple
just
accounts.
move the money automatically. And I think that was one of the best life-changing books for financial literacy on my end.
Mm.
And I'm going to say this, we did an event. So in M3, one of the reasons I interview these $1 billion founders is because I like to connect people in our community, in our entrepreneur community, with people, these $1 billion founders, people, very successful people. And so 2 weeks ago, we did an event with a guy named Richard Koch. Richard's a billionaire. He wrote the book, The 80/20 Principle, which is also a game changing book. But he has, for me, he has another book called The Star Principle. Now, when it comes to business and investing, I think this is probably, probably the best book I've ever read. And one of the reasons I wanted to do an event with Richard is because I wanted to meet him, but I also wanted him to look at our community members' businesses and tell us how we can improve. So the STAR principle is basically how Richard made $1 billion. 1.4 billion is his net worth, but by choosing businesses to start or invest in. And he has this strategy that puts businesses in 4 different quadrants. You could be a star business, which is amazing, like the Ubers, the Apples, the
Facebook.
Those companies of the world are star businesses, but you can have a smaller star business too in your home city, your home, in your own business niche. Then you have businesses that are cash cows. They're good businesses. They just don't provide massive amount of money. They may provide a profit, but it's a slower growth sort of profit. Those are called a cash cow. Say somebody has a hotel or an online business that, makes 5% per year, year over year, right? Somebody has a hotel, they make decent money from the hotel, right? It grows 5% every year. And then you have businesses that are question marks. They could either be cash cows or stars, or they could just be the fourth type of business, which is a dog. A dog is a type of business that's in a declining market and it's pumping cash out left and right. And for some reason, people try to stay in these businesses. Richard gets out of those businesses immediately. So when it comes to finance, why am I saying this regarding financial literacy? For the entrepreneurs out there, if you're looking to start or you have a business and you don't know if your business is a star business or a cash cow or a question mark, Richard's system in this book, The Star Principle, can really help you hone into that, right? And then take the whatever, but it doesn't matter if you're, have a services company, a product company selling on Amazon, whatever you're doing, there's a way to create a star business out of your business by choosing the right niche or niching down or niching up or changing the niche slightly. And if it's impossible to do that, then it's a great eye opener to change. It's time to move businesses, exit, do something else. I would imagine like you did really well when you started off, Nick. You had a star business somehow. Yeah, you had all the funnels, but like if you didn't pick the right niche in the right market at the right time, the business wouldn't have worked, right? And when you do that, it is like there's wind behind the sails of the business and it grows so much faster and it's so much more fun because you're pumping out cash and you're making lots of money, and then you have $500,000 to start a software company and lose it and then still be okay,
And not worry, because that's the thing. Like I hear entrepreneurs and they want to invest in this thing or they want to start something else. My biggest question is, do you have the caliber to lose it all and withstand it? Like I didn't lose a single night of sleep even after losing that money.
That's
so
amazing.
It was like, it's like I have additional cash flow. I had to burn myself a little bit to realize that it's painful. So, okay, like I learned a lot from it. So I believe it's a great experience for me on how not to run a company, which I have, which will make me more money than what I lost. So I'm not worried about that. But yeah, it's a great principle. Appreciate you sharing that overall. And I believe most businesses like emotionally running the dog businesses and they don't want to take out time and analyze if they can turn around their dog business into a star business. And I'm glad you're dropping some nuggets here. Chris, I'm kind of jealous of your network a little bit, in envy, in a good way. So you're like, hey, I know this billionaire, I know that billionaire. I'm like, whoa, like, I know millionaires and I became a millionaire. And I believe if anybody in the world, not just me, if they meet with enough billionaires and they learn and they execute on what they're learning and they continue to have a long-term thinking process with actual team around them who have the same vision, anybody can build a $1 billion company. That's just my positive, belief system overall. So I'm curious, how do you build these networks? Like I've interviewed few people who are at 9-figure level. I interviewed a guy who actually did over $1 billion combined, with some M&A stuff. I'm curious, how do you network with this billionaire? What's like the best networking advice you have to get these amazing folks to work with you, to meet, to do events with you, to be on your podcast and whatnot? Walk us through your secret sauce.
Yeah, I think, the only difference between you and I is just I've had more years at it than you have.
That's it.
That's it.
So I'm on track.
That's it. Right? Like at the time I wanted to interview 107-figure founders that have built online businesses. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can find 100 people that have
That
built
was
million
scary
dollar
for me
companies.
as well. Yeah.
Right? Same thing. So it's just that's the only difference, man. And just the way that, you found a network of 100 millionaires, you can keep growing that. And then you put yourself and you keep doing awesome things. Like you live a great life. You keep growing your network. You seem like you're a networker. You're in Dubai to network. You can make some great contacts there. And then you just kind of keep moving up the ladder of your network, and it keeps growing. Go to events where people like that hang out at. Or
Hmm.
join communities. Our community is a community full of 7 and 8 figure founders. I one of the first communities I was a part of, is $10,000 to go to the event. That was a high network community. It's $10,000
Hmm.
to go to the event, and I was like, "Who's going to be there?" Da, 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 da. Okay, I'm in. Right, and I saw the contacts that I could have, and that was huge. Go to places. I lived in Austin, Texas, for a couple of years.
Hmm.
A lot of very successful entrepreneurs in Austin,
Great
Texas
place.
these days. Dubai is
Yeah.
probably very similar. Now I'm hanging out in Barcelona these days. So, you just
Fun
gotta
place.
go out and meet people and shake hands and kiss babies and, get them on your podcast, and, you'll just keep growing and
Yeah, yeah. I love the fact that I could leverage podcasts for great connections. People, ask me like, should I start a podcast? My only like, if you want to really stay in the game and continue to do it, you should. I believe podcasting is one of the easiest, or I would say most lucrative way to ask for connection. Probably, Chris. I would not be able to talk to many people who I did speak with on this podcast if it wasn't for the show. And it just feels great for them to give a stage where they could express themselves and be themselves, to be transparent, and just having that flexibility is like almost impossible these days, where we are living this box life of routine overall, and it just feels excitement for them as well. So okay, great, let's get to the next set of the questions. Chris, I have a few questions before we wrap up the interview. What kind of tools do you use on a daily basis for your personal productivity and managing your projects?
Yeah. 2 tools top of mind. Brain FM. I've used Brain FM since
No.
2015. And 2015, I love Brain FM. It's just focused music
Hmm.
with binaural beats.
Interesting.
I actually am a friend of the founder now, and met him along the way, and I'm his biggest fan. And then the other thing is a tool called Brain Tap. I actually have it right here. Can I show you? So
What is that?
this thing looks ridiculous, okay? But it's amazing. I interviewed the founder of this company, Brain Tap. At the time
What
it was
is
a
that?
$50
It looks
million.
like it's from 2050.
Right. It is. At the time, it was a $50 million company. I think they're much more now. But what happens is you connect this to an app, and you put it over your ears, and there's lights in the visor, and
Hmm.
they have 20-minute meditation sessions, and there's actually
Hmm.
lights in the earphones as well here.
Wow.
And so there's lights in the earphones, and then there's lights in your eyes, and then they have binaural beats and meditative sessions connected to the app. And I saw people do this. The first time I saw people do this, it was like, this ridiculous. I'm never going to use this
Yeah,
thing.
it's weird.
Like it looks, yeah,
You
it's
judge
really
first.
weird. So then I interviewed the founder, and he told me all the neuroscience behind it, and I was blown away. I was like, all right, I've got to buy one of these. His name's Dr. Patrick Porter. I was like, how do I get one? And he goes, here, I'll give you a link, and you can go buy one. And I've had this one since 2000 and 2020, I think, or 2021, 2020.
Three and a
I've
half
used
years.
it for
Wow.
like 3.5 years now. And I use this once or twice a day. And like, I'm a seasoned meditator. I've done Vipassana. I've done darkroom meditations. I've meditated for years. Right. But this
Whoa.
thing is so next level, because it's like the flashing in your eyes gets your brain waves to a deeper state much quicker with the sound in your ears and the lights in your
Hmm.
ears. And a 20-minute session feels like a 3-hour nap. Like it is phenomenal. Yeah. And I swear the first time I saw those, I was like, I'm never doing that. That's some gimmick. That's crap. Yeah. And then I did
And
it, and
it's
I
so
love
easy to have
it.
the judgmental mindset. But yeah, that's great. Appreciate you sharing that overall. So, how does your typical routine looks like on a day-to-day basis, Chris? Walk us through your typical day.
Yeah, it depends if it's a jujitsu day or not. So I'll give you both. My first, I wake up generally, I sleep about 6.5 to 7 hours. I wake up
Hmm.
naturally. I never wake up to an alarm. Um, and I get up and I go up to the roof, and I do a meditation. I get sunlight there. 20 minutes of sunlight in the morning, it's so good for us. It's so, so good for
Hmm.
us.
Like
And
topless?
yeah, it depends on the weather. Like we just got out, finished the winter season here in Barcelona. It's going into summer. So if I can, then I'll take my shirt off. And then I go down and I do a little work. And then I have breakfast with my girlfriend, and then I do a little bit more work. If it's a jujitsu day, I have a class at 10:30, so I'll go to jujitsu, and then after jujitsu, which is an hour and a half class, I'll go to a restaurant that has like organic, healthy food. I eat there, and then I go to the spa. I do 2 or 3 cold plunges with 2 or 3 saunas, and then I go and I co-work or work at my apartment the rest of the day, wherever I'm at, deciding to go for the day. And then and that's generally my day. Like I like to take. I don't like to work too late. It's 9 p.m. here, but it's still light out, so it's not too late Barcelona time. And
Hmm.
then I like to take the last couple hours of the evening to kind of decompress and chill and relax a bit. But I used to be super, super, super disciplined and very on point with my schedule and working, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours a day. And nowadays I'm just like, yeah, I leave open time in every day so I can hang out with a friend, grab a coffee, do a random call, do a random podcast, just go for a walk, whatever I feel like in that day. So I leave some open time, usually in the afternoons for flexibility on doing some fun stuff. Saturdays are always girlfriend days and Sundays are always no plan days. So I need days where I have absolutely zero plans and you just go with the
Hmm.
flow. And that's my Sunday. And then Saturday's girlfriend day. And whether we decide to hang out with friends or not, but we're doing something together.
That's really cool, Chris. Appreciate you walking us through your day. I have 3 more questions. Do you have enough time?
Yeah, it's
Like
okay. Let's
3
do
more
it.
minutes?
Yeah, yeah. We're
Okay,
having a good
perfect.
time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So, Chris, if you could go back and give a suggestion to 20-year-old yourself, what would that be?
I'd go back to stick with one thing for 10 years and just focus on that for 10 years. Like your life will change. I would also tell my 20-year-old self to like I started my first business when I was 27. I'd tell my 20-year-old self to start a business when you're 20.
That's it. Yeah.
And and then I would say go travel the world earlier because it wasn't until I was 30 till I started traveling the world. And
Hmm,
I would say, like just start traveling the world. Like there's no reason not to. Go out there and see some
interesting.
amazing things. You can build stuff online these days. Even back then you can build stuff online. And so that's what I would tell them.
I'm curious. This is a personal question. I'm kind of guy. I actually see a lot of entrepreneurs as well. They just need a laptop and a corner, and and they could just grind it out. And like I don't like going out or kind of hanging out a lot outside. I'm very like I would say conscious about where I'm spending my time. I'm curious.
Yeah.
How did travel impact your life and perspective in general? How did that change the view you have to the world?
Well, it opened my mind even more than like I was never really a closed-minded person, but it opened my mind more. I've learned Spanish, I've learned a decent amount of Portuguese along the way, but also
Gracias.
de nada.
That's
Um,
the one word I know.
yeah, yeah. And then really the biggest thing, Nick, was that I wouldn't have my network if I didn't go travel. Like I'm the type of
Mm,
guy I could drop into Dubai, I could drop into Medellin, I could drop into Bangkok and have people there. Budapest, London, New York, like it's, once you start
gangster
to
stuff.
no, not even that. It's just like, you have connections and you've added value in
Yeah.
people's lives, and you've been to a lot of conferences and you've
Hmm,
participated in communities around the world. And then you just put a post on Facebook, who's in New York. I'll be there, Thursday through Sunday. Let's hang. And you get 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people just reach out and you go have a dinner and you'll connect, right?
pretty cool.
And for me, that's it's led to what I can do through the podcast. It's led to the opportunities I've had. It's led to so many potentialities. So, uh,
Love that.
yeah.
Any any biggest failures which you would like to share with others so that we don't need to make that same mistake and we could just probably avoid it.
Yeah, man. I did once upon a time, I got my friends to invest a couple $100,000 and I didn't get the investment backed up by collateral. and I didn't dig enough into the company's back story and their financials before I did it. I did it on trust. And I'm an optimistic guy, and I believe everybody should have a certain level of trust. Like, life's just better if you trust people in general, but do your due diligence significantly. And so it took a massive toll on a relationship with those two individuals. It took like a lot of legal issues, a lot of dirt to dig through, and that was a hard lesson. Another billion-dollar founder that I interviewed, Heen Shayani, he said on the podcast, he said, always follow the money. The money never lies. Follow the money trail. It will never lie. Never, ever, ever. And this time, because of, trust I had for an individual, I didn't follow the money, and I really should have. And it was a huge lesson. It impacted my life. Even to this day, it had impacted my life. So follow the money, guys. Always follow the money.
I love that advice. Trust but verify. Just make sure
Mhm.
you know your
Exactly.
numbers right.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
love that. Any achievements you would like to share, and what are the next big goals you have, Chris?
Man, achievements, like I've achieved a lot in my life, and so I've gotten to the point where achievements are a natural part of just growth and process on a regular basis. We just did an event with Richard Koch, which was phenomenal. 6 or 8 months before that, we did an event with Drayton McLean. We put an event together, with these amazing individuals. All these are great achievements. But really, I think, like, at the end of the day, the most important thing as you grow older too is like maintaining your health and your relationships with the people that are most important in your life. That's what gives you depth in life and depth in relationships. Like, I live halfway across the world. My parents are in the US, and I still maintain a really good relationship with them. I've got, dozens of cousins back home where I grew up, and I try to stay connected with them. I've got them, I've got one that comes and visits me on a couple times a year, right? Right. And so in the end of the day, like, the money goes away. We can't take the money with us, but we can take the experiences with people and the relationships that we have. And that's most important.
That's pretty sweet. Living the life to full size. And what inspires you, Chris? Like, why are you excited to wake up, do this podcast, build the businesses, show up for different podcasts, host those events? What is like? What's in it for you? What's like the real vision?
It's, I love just supporting people in their business growth, actually. That excites me. I love helping people achieve their goals. I love pushing people, to achieve their goals. Like, I want to see what you're doing, Nick, in 5 years. And, when I come to Dubai, I'm going to go. I have a good friend that goes to Dubai all the time. And one of these days I'm going to go with him. Like, I'm going to look you up and I'll be like, Nick, what's going on? What's your goals? What are you working on?
Poke me a little bit and make me
Yeah.
uncomfortable to grow.
How's your
Yeah, I love
network
that.
going? How's the podcast going? Sort of thing, and we all need people like this. I just enjoy it, and I enjoy it when people do it to me. And it's all about growth and adding value to other people's lives. So that's the main
I love
inspiration.
that. I love that. That's great. Actually, I think we need more of those people. We need more of these stories and lessons. So we are actually against the wall to perform. It's so easy to choose to be comfortable and lazy and scroll through TikTok, watch Netflix, sit on the couch, eat a burger and sleep. Wow, like what a life. Amazing. But 70 years later, I don't even think you can make it to 70 to live that life. But lucky you, if you do it, all you have is regrets. I was lucky enough to have an internship in my last year of college when I was dropping out almost. I was hanging around with a lot of folks who were very close to the retirement. And once I heard those stories, I just realized, like, wow, these guys have one of the most secured government jobs and they make decent money. All of their kids are settled and everything is good, but they regret their life so much. I don't want to be this guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me take risks. The worst which could happen is I can end up like them. So I was like, let me take some risks. So it was great.
Yes.
So Chris, how can entrepreneurs who are listening to this podcast tune into your network? How can they connect with you or join the community or be a part of what you're doing?
For our community, the easiest place is we have a website, m3.club, as in Michael, the number 3.club. And you can go check out all the fun things that we do. We have an incredible community. We do really cool events. One time we booked out a desert camp in Morocco, and we took a bunch of entrepreneurs there, and we spent 5 days in the desert camp talking business and
Middle
riding
of the
camels.
desert.
Yeah,
Man,
it was a lot of fun. And we may do that again, Nick. So I'll let you know if we do.
Yeah, I would be stoked to be there.
Yeah. And then, of course, the podcast, the Business Method podcast, you can find it on all the apps and all the all the platforms. So
Hmm.
those are the best two ways.
That's awesome. Yeah, pretty cool, Chris. Any last word to conclude the whole show?
No, man. You guys, if you're listening to Nick, listen to him more. You see, he's going places, and it sounds like he's got some amazing people on the podcast. And stay focused, you guys. Like, don't give up. Give it 10 years. Like, just keep at it. Stay healthy. Remember the relationships, the people that help you get you there, and maybe we'll see you on another podcast soon.
Great. Appreciate that, Chris. This was definitely a lot of wisdom in a very short period of time. So, guys, we saved you decades. So, if you like this podcast, please share it with other people. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to Chris Reynolds along with me here at the Nikhil Sai Show. And please subscribe so that I will be back with another amazing guest just on this show, just like Chris, and we'll have amazing time together. Appreciate you guys so far. Thank you, Chris, for jumping on. Have a good one. Bye bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Chris, please stay.